Welcome to the HMO Property Show by investors for investors. Brought to you by the HMO Property Co, Australia's leaders in impact investing. Investments made with the intention to generate a measurable, beneficial social or environmental impact alongside a positive financial return. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host, as always, Neil Gibb, and today I'm going to tell you how I paid $17,000 for my $100,000 Range Rover by using the cash flow from other people's properties. Now, pretty big, bold statement, but going back to the podcast that we just recently recorded with Mr. Joe Macri, we started the podcast by saying, own nothing and control everything, which is a great statement by John D. Rockefeller. And other statements that are kind of thrown around in the real estate phrase are using other people's money, which is OPM. But today I'm going to teach you how to use other people's properties without you needing to purchase them, but in a way that you can control them to then create cash flow for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or some of my properties that I've done 5 to 10 years. So in this, I'm going to take you through the exact step-by-step process in how to find these properties, negotiate on these properties, set these properties up, and then use the cash flow from these properties to pay for liabilities that go down in value. Because more cash flow equals more options, more time, and more freedom. So going back to the buying assets and controlling assets that go up in value and produce cash flow, and use that cash flow to fund the lease or the loan payments on liabilities that go down in value. So what do we mean by that? We mean that we want to use assets like houses, like real estate that produce cash flow, not negatively geared, that you then claim back that loss through a tax variation. We want cash flow to be producing on a weekly basis so that you can use that to pay bills, pay bank loans, pay for holidays. Anything you want to do with that cash flow, you can use it for because it comes in recurringly, the same as these bills come in recurringly. So if you don't like cars, if cars isn't your thing, if you don't want a $100,000 Range Rover, that's totally fine. I get it. But you can use that money to then invest in watches, shares, gold, silver, any other type of asset. You can even use it to pay for your kids' school fees. You can use it to pay for holidays. You can use it to pay for clothes. You can use the cash flow for whatever you want to do. And I've used this strategy extremely well in Perth and created probably about $80,000 to $90,000 a year cash flow from other people's properties without the need for big deposits, stamp duty, and taking on the risk as if it's going to work or not. We lowered our risk by only really risking $15,000 to $17,000, or in the best one that I actually did, it only cost me $7,000 to set it up. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But as I say, not everybody has $150,000 to $200,000 to invest in real estate to then go out and create cash flow. So what I'm going to teach you today is my cheat code and how to access and negotiate on them properties so that you can create the cash flow and live life on your terms. And this cheat code is kind of like when you played Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Mega Drive back in the days. If there's any kids listening to this and they don't understand what a Sega Mega Drive is, that was the gaming console of the 90s. And there was a cheat code where if you did up, down, left, right, A, and start, you got to pick any of the levels on that game. So this is like learning how to cheat the system and access other people's properties so that you can get ahead in life. Now, so if you've got $20,000 in cash or a little bit more and you want to get creative, then this podcast is for you because I'm going to take you through step by step exactly what to do. Now, you can generate anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a year from real estate without owning it. The best one I actually did, it cost me $7,000 to set up, and it created more than $29,000 a year in cash flow. That gave me a 400% cash on cash return in 1 year. Now, I've been getting a bit of a hammering on Facebook lately, on my Facebook ads. A lot of people have been calling me a scammer. A lot of people have been saying that what we do is not true. The numbers aren't right. I'm a slumlord. the truth of the matter is this style of accommodation is needed in the marketplace. We've got social housing, or we've got the private rental market. Both of them are absolutely screwed right now. There's over nearly 40,000 people on the social housing waiting list. That's applicants, not people. And we've got a 0.3% vacancy rate in Perth right now. And this is recorded at the start of March 2023. So this style of accommodation is needed. Someone actually had a dig at me the other day saying, I am pricing people out of the market and stopping people from investing. But I believe that by providing this style of accommodation, we are delivering to the market accommodation that people can afford to live in places that they want to live. And it's super convenient for them because they don't have to buy furniture. They don't have to mess around setting gas and electric bills up. They don't have to mess around getting internet connected. It's all done for them. People love convenience nowadays. And I think this is only the start of this strategy. It's going to be huge in the future. It's big now. It's huge in the UK. And this strategy is from the UK. So in the UK, it's called rent to rent. It can also be called head lease, sublease. And you can really perform this on any piece of real estate that can be converted into a HMO, or you can easily do it for Airbnb as well. And what we aim to do with this strategy is we aim to get 100% cash on cash return in our first year, but make sure that we've got a 3, 4, or 5-year lease so that we can get our money back year one and then make 100% cash on cash return every single year moving forward. The caveat for this right now, it's really tricky in this market. So when I was going out and securing head leases for myself and some of our investors, we've stopped doing this now because it's really, really difficult. The vacancy rate in Perth was like 7%, lots of vacant properties on the market. But that's not to say that it cannot be done. I just now need to put my focus in other areas because I just don't have enough time to do everything. So if you've got time and you've got money in the bank, but not enough money to purchase a property and you want to try and create some additional cash flow, then I'm going to take you through these exact steps right now. So if you're in a quiet market, if you're potentially in Sydney or Melbourne or somewhere where there's a lot more property out there, then this could be potentially for you. So first of all, we are looking to rent that property from an existing landlord with permission to then sublease that property back out. And what we're aiming to do is lease it and rent it for market value. That can be $450, $500. The most I paid on one of my head leases was $800 a week. And I actually leased that asset back out for $1,500 a week. And that's the one that I made $27,000 a year on. But normally the sort of target was between $12,000 and $20,000 a year. So what you want to do, go on realestate.com, go on Domain, any of these search engines that are out there now, and go to the filter section in the top part of the software. Forgot what it was called there. And what we want to do is we want to set a filter so we filter out all of the properties that are no use to us. So we don't want to be looking at 3x1s. We don't want to be looking at 4x2s. We want to be looking at 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom properties or more. So 5x3s, 5x4s, 5x5s, 6x6s. The one that I made the most money on, that was actually a 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom HMO that somebody else built. The property management was average at best, and they couldn't fill all the rooms. So they put it on the market as one property to rent. I went in, and I'll take you through the negotiation on it soon, but I went in and I basically negotiated a 4-year lease on that property and ended up making some really good money. The investor who owned the property got what they wanted. They got a long-term secure tenant, and I got to then sublease them rooms out, and it was already furnished, and it was in a great location. It was in Fremantle, so couldn't have got any better. So we've got our filter set. We're looking for a 5x3. We're looking for a 5x4. We're looking for a 5x5. We're looking for anything that's got multiple bedrooms and multiple bathrooms. If you have more than 3 bedrooms sharing a bathroom, I would probably stay away from that property because it gets really hard to rent out rooms where you've got more than 3 people sharing the same facility. So that's why I'm saying a 5x3. So you got 2 sort of master bedrooms with en suites, and then 3 smaller bedrooms with a shared bathroom that'll rent out for a lot less than what you'd rent out for an ensuite. Now, we're not putting kitchenettes in these things. We're not renovating them. We're not putting additional en suites in. At best, we might install a stud frame wall to partition maybe like a theater room or a games room, which is kind of open at the minute. We might spend $1,500 to $2,000 to install a wall with a door on there and put a lock on it to create another rentable room. But we do not want to go through the hassle of spending $15,000, $20,000 installing en suites unless that's your own property, that's your own asset. So once you've found a property, and what I'd probably say to this as well, we need to think about what the rooms will rent out for at the back end. So that'll also set the filter of what we are willing to pay as an investor on the front end. Now, when I was executing this strategy in Perth, I was setting my search parameters to 5x3s or better, and anything under $500, $550 per week. And then I was looking to rent them properties out for $1,000 a week or more and essentially make $250 to $300 per week. Now, it might not sound like much, but once you let that go over a year, or if you get 2 or 3 of these properties, all of a sudden you've got $800, $900, $1,500 a week coming in, and all of a sudden life becomes a little bit rosy. You can either manage these properties yourself, or you can get a property management business. In the early days, we managed them ourselves. And then we built J&G Property Group to manage our portfolio of properties because it was coming too much for us to manage them ourselves. So in the early days, though, to increase your cash flow, especially if you don't want to work, if you've got some money and you're out of work at the minute, you can set these up and manage them yourselves. It's actually quite fun. So plug your room rates in. Once you know, sorry, let me take a step back. We found a property, it's $500 a week. What we want to do now is multiply that by 52 so we know what we need to pay to that landlord in 12 months. Now, I work everything out in 12-month periods. You can, if you've got the skill to work this out monthly, that's fine. But multiply that weekly rent by 52. That gives you annual outgoing to that landlord. Now, put your room rates in of what you think the rooms would rent out for in that area. If you're struggling for this information, you can check Facebook Marketplace, you can check flatmates.com, you can check Gumtree, and compare apples with apples. Like, if there's a really old daggy property that's renting out, let's say, and let's just put a figure on this, it's a bedroom with a shared bathroom, it's renting out for $150 a week. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we've got a brand new bedroom in a house living with an owner, and they're trying to rent out for $300 a week. Just make sure that the figures that you put into your feasibility are realistic. Are your bedrooms going to be more like the older, tired looking rooms, or are you going to try and make them as smart as possible, as nice as possible, as bright as possible, new furniture? Try and get at least 10 comparable room rates so that you're accurate with your figures. Now, times that by 52, and then that gives you the rent that you can collect from this head lease. And the figure should be substantial from what you're renting it from. It should be at least double. So if you're renting a property for $500 a week, you want to be renting it for at least $1,000 a week, which is very achievable. Depending on the amount of en suites, it could be even more. Now, things that you need to take out of that room rate times 52 are your fees. So you need to factor in gas, water, electric, internet, insurance, cleaners, and maintenance. Now, that might sound like a lot, and it can be a lot, but we average that out to be between $12,000 and $17,000 a year. And that can vary based on the age of the house, the location of the house, how many people are living in that house, and the consumption of people that are living in that house as well. So it can be $12,000 to $17,000, and then take away your property management fees. Now, they can be anywhere. Ours are 15% plus GST, unless you have multiple properties with us. If you have multiple properties, we reduce that rate for some of our clients. Or you can manage these yourself. Check with the insurance provider to make sure that you actually can manage these yourself and you will be insured. Once you've got your property management fees there, then you know what it's going to cost you. Your property management fees are going to be a percentage of the rent collected from the room rates. So if you've got 5 rooms renting out for $200 a week, that means your weekly rent is $1,000. Take away your property management fees from there. Take away your gas, water, electric, internet, insurance, cleaners, maintenance from there, and that will leave you with your net cash flow. The only thing that you now need to factor into there is the annual rent to your landlord. So the equation that you need to bang in is this: room rates times 52 minus a 5 to 10% vacancy rate minus bills minus property management fees minus annual rent to landlord equals your net surplus cash flow. I'll go through that again. Room rates times 52 minus 5 to 10% vacancy rate minus bills minus property management fees minus annual rent to landlord equals cash flow. Now, when we first set this up, we wanted to make sure that we would get our rent back, our initial outlay back within 12 months. Now, the things that you need to consider when you're setting these properties up is furniture and appliances, because if you're providing a HMO, you want to make sure that it's ready for people to move into. People love convenience. If you're providing convenience for these people, they will pay a premium for it. So furniture and appliances, you need to really consider the fire safety install. If you want to go back and listen to the podcast that I did with Data Wagner a couple of weeks back, he will explain exactly why we do the fire install, why it's so critical that it's installed. You also need to consider your 2 weeks up front and your 4 weeks bond to the landlord, and your leasing fees, which is your 2 weeks to the landlord. Now, to try and save some setup cost, I would really try to, I'd try and find properties that are already furnished, fully furnished properties. That's going to save you a large chunk of money from setting these properties up. But it means that you could also pay a premium for that weekly rent. Now, after you consider that setup cost, you need to make sure that you can make that money back within 12 months. Now, how I ended up paying $17,000 for my $100,000 Range Rover is it cost me $17,000 to set up one of my head leases in Joondalup. That property produces $18,000 a year of net surplus cash flow. And my Range Rover Sport lease is only $12,500 per year. So instead of me paying 12 grand every year on a 5-year lease, and I'm not going to try and do the maths on that, 120 be $64,000 over 5 years. What I did is I put $17,000 into the head lease, and I allocated my cash flow from that property towards the lease payments on my Range Rover Sport. Buy or control assets that go up in value and produce cash flow, and use that cash flow to fund the lease or loan repayments on liabilities that go down in value. Now, if I keep that Range Rover for 5 years, it still only cost me $17,000 because I've allocated the cash flow from that investment into that Range Rover Sport. You can do this with assets that you own as well. You can do exactly the same thing. Instead of allocating $150,000 to $150,000 towards something like a car, you should invest that in a property that produces cash flow to pay for the lease on that car, because cars will deteriorate over time, where properties should go up in value over time. And if you ever need to sell that property, your $100,000 to $150,000 is still there and you can access it. It's not as liquid as it could be. However, it doesn't take long to sell a property, especially in this market. So if you have a HMO and you want to sell it, give me a shout. I've got about 20 people that I could sell this to within about 24 hours. Now, I know what you're thinking. Neil, why would anybody want to lease me their property on a long-term lease? Why does somebody not just do this themselves? And it's a great question. I used to get asked this quite a lot in the early days. Now, not everybody wants the headache of setting these up. Not everybody knows how to set them up. A lot of people have invested in real estate to save tax through negative gearing. God, I can't even say it. Such a bad word. So not everybody wants the headaches, the stress, the positively geared asset that we want. So you'd be surprised how many people actually accept these. We've probably done about 15 to 20, and I'd say it's closer to 20 of these deals in Perth. Now, it served us and our clients really well, and it's created some really good cash flow, and it's created some good accommodation for people in areas that they want to live. So the way to negotiate on these properties, because as we said, it's not as straightforward, especially in this market right now. The Perth market is extremely tight. The vacancy rate is 0.3%. The chances of you securing a deal like this in Perth right now are very, very slim. And even with the experience and the skill set that I've got in this area, I would not even waste my time trying to negotiate these properties right now. However, if you find an area that's soft with vacancy, with properties on the market that are vacant and they've been on the market for a while and they fit the bill and they can be converted into HMO or even Airbnb, then by all means, give it a crack, because right now I'm going to teach you exactly how to negotiate on these properties. And in the early days, I used to get really nervous about this. And I appreciate the fact that if you're listening to this podcast and you've never done anything like this before, you are probably going to be extremely nervous too. And that's okay. When you're doing something that you've never done before, you're going to feel nervous. So don't feel bad about that. But first things first, you've got to ring the agent and you've got to reach out to them and say, tell me more about the property. How long's it been on the market for? Would the agent be open to? Would the seller, not the seller, sorry, I've been buying properties. Would the landlord be open to a long-term lease to a business? And then then just sit there in the silence. Let the agent speak. If they ask you more about it, you can just kind of introduce yourself. My name is Neil Gibb. I'm from the HMO Property Co, and we help landlords secure long-term tenure at market rate whilst providing affordable accommodation. And we also make your life as a property manager easier because we take care of like everything for you. And we're not trying to cut you out of the deal. A lot of property managers will think that you're trying to move them out of the deal. You need to express to them that you are trying to make their life easier because they have to manage you as a business and you'll manage everything else that's going on in this property. So make that clear to the property manager. We're not trying to cut you out here. You still get your payments. You still get paid by your landlord. You still collect the rent for your client. And we become your tenant. And then we sublease these rooms out. Also express to them that for us to make sure these rooms are leased out, we're going to send cleaners through. We're going to look after this property as if it's our own. We're going to do absolutely everything. It's probably going to get looked after better than if it was leased out to a normal family or a single-owned individual. Now, that's kind of where I leave that conversation. I don't overload them with too much information. I'm not going to tell them I want to put walls up. I'm not going to tell them I want to do fire and safety installs. I simply ask them to go back to the landlord and ask them if the landlord would be open to such a deal or a conversation. You're not going to win them all, guys. It's as simple as that. You might apply for 10 of these and you might get none. In the early days, me and Joe probably applied for about 5 or 6. And then we got our first one. And then we got our second one like straight after. And then we got our third one. And here's the deal. On our third one, we secured the actual lease, but we didn't have enough spare cash to actually buy the furniture, pay the bond, and do the fire and safety install. But by our calculations, we were going to make that money back within 9 months. So what I did is I approached a friend and I said, look, I've got this deal. I need $17,000. It was actually $15,000. No, it wasn't. Sorry, it was $21,000. So I've got this deal. It's $21,000. I'm going to make 25 grand a year cash flow from it. I make all my money back within 9 months. Do you want to put the money in? $21,000. I'll give you $25,000 back within 12 months. And he did. So we used somebody else's money to upgrade somebody else's property and then make cash flow from that property. I had a 5-year lease on that property. I didn't put any money in. I didn't own the property. I made 20 odd grand a year. I think it was 21 to 22 grand a year cash flow I made from that property. So you can get as creative as you want in real estate. Right now, I want to talk to you about how I secured the property in Fremantle, because that was a 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom house. And we had to be patient on that deal. So here's the scenario. The client back in, I think it was about 2004, 2005. Sorry, no, it wasn't. I'm totally lying. Yeah, it was 2004, 2005. They built 2 double-story, 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom houses in Fremantle. And I could not believe my eyes when I was searching realestate.com and I seen that there was a 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom house on the market, but for $1,100 per week. So I instantly reached out to the real estate agent and I said, "Hi, my name's Neil Gibb. I'm from, at the time, J&G Property Group, and we help people get access to real estate. I'm really interested in this property. However, it's incredibly unique, and I'd love to see if the owner was up to being creative with the lease on it." And the lady said, "What are you thinking?" I said, "Well, can I meet you down at the property? Because I'd love to just have a bit of a look at it before we actually discuss things further." And what she said to me is, "Well, the property is going to be vacant next week because I cannot fill all 12 rooms. So I'm moving everybody from one house into the other to fill the rooms in there. And then this one will be available for lease at $1,100 a week." I said, "Okay, no problem. I'll meet you down at the property." So we went down and we couldn't believe our eyes. 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom, built really well. Probably not to our taste, and probably overcapitalized on the build. However, 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom, we knew that we could rent them bedrooms out for $250 a week all day long. Not a problem. The other beautiful thing about it was, it was fully furnished. It was a fully furnished HMO, and they were wanting $1,100 a week. So I was trying to hide all this excitement inside me as I was negotiating with the agent. And I said, "This, Mr. Agent, Mrs. Agent, I'm really interested in this property. We've got a business that provides room rentals like this. We've got people queuing up to rent these things. However, the $1,100 a week is a little bit past my budget, and I just can't take that lease on at that price because I won't make any money myself." And she said, "Oh, you want to rent this property and make money off it?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And she said, "Well, I couldn't rent all these rooms out. What makes you so confident that you can?" I said, "I've got 6 people that I could probably move in here next week." At the time, I actually didn't have 6 people to move into that property next week. However, when I got the lease, it took me 3 weeks to fill all 6 rooms, and I rented them out for $250 a week each. So I said, "Look, here's the deal. I'm willing to offer $900 a week, and I want to lease the property for 5 years. And each year we'll review the rent. And if the rent in the area is increased, we'll increase our rent to the landlord to match the market, the area rent." I said, "However, if the rent goes down, I'll leave my rent exactly as it is." So this was a real sweetener for the landlord. So off she popped. She went and spoke to the landlord. The landlord, she came back. She said, "He's keen to do it. He wants $1,100 per week." And I said, "Look, I really can't stretch myself to there. It's beyond my comfort limit. Like I said, I can't make any money. I'm obviously doing this to make some money and provide affordable accommodation at the same time. But if your client changes their mind, please feel free to give me a shout and I'd be happy to negotiate further." So on realestate.com, you can press a star button and it sends you a notification to your phone every time the price on a property for sale or a property for rent changes, or if the status changes. So if it's under offer or sold or something like that, you get a notification. What happened over the next 4 or 5 weeks shocked me, because that property dropped from 1,100 a week to 1,050 a week to 950 a week to $900 a week, which is basically what I asked if I could rent the property for 5 weeks prior. So I jumped back on the phone to the agent. "Hey, remember me? I'm the crazy guy that wants to lease this 6-bedroom house." She said, "Yep." I said, is the landlord still open to the head lease?" She said, "Yep." I said, "Cool." I said, "The only problem is, though, because it's dropped down in value so much, my offer now is not $900 a week. It's $800 a week." So she went back to the landlord again. The landlord came back. 2 days later, we signed the lease and we got it for $800 per week on a 5-year lease. After year 1, the lease did not change. After year 2, the lease did not change. And after year 3, the lease went from $800 to $850 per week. Now, I was making incredible cash flow on this property, really good cash flow on this property, and it cost me $7,000 to install the fire alarms because I was an electrician, so I installed them myself. I installed the fire alarms and I did some really small upgrades to the furniture that was in there. It was a little bit old. Just put some new bed sheets on, fresh pillows. I say my wife did this because she absolutely loves all this stuff. I actually hate it. So I secured the lease. Joe made it look absolutely amazing. And then we rented all 6 rooms out within 3 weeks. And we could not believe that we'd actually secured that property. So these deals are out there, guys. You are the solution to somebody else's problem. So please do not feel bad if you ring up and you negotiate on a deal like this and you get knocked back. Because if you keep knocking on enough doors, eventually someone will say yes. So I hope this podcast has helped somebody. I hope it's got the brain ticking. If you're not in the situation where you've got $100,000 or more to go out and invest in property, but you do want to control somebody else's property and you do want to create cash flow, then head lease, sublease, or rent to rent is definitely this strategy for you. If you've got any questions on it, feel free to hit me up. Fortunately, like I said earlier, I do not help people negotiate on these anymore. I do not look for them anymore myself. As my business has grown, I've had to allocate my time and energy into certain areas of the business. And unfortunately, there's just not enough revenue in the head lease strategy for us as a business with the size of the team that we've got. So unfortunately, I won't be able to help you, but I hope there's enough value in this podcast that's giving you the confidence to go out there and actually execute yourself. If you do, please message me and let me know, because I love hearing other people do cool stuff. All right, guys, have a great day and namaste.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you stay up to date with all the cash flow positive property updates.